Now, the rest of the story.
Welcome back. Let me start this video off by saying a couple things. Okay, so the handle on the rear window, I believe my brother broke it out a month ago. I put the replacement in, and yes, a little bit of squeaking is the seat, but that low crackling, it's the new hinge for some reason has this unbearable squawk, crack, something like fingernails on a chalkboard. And my fix for it is putting a piece of shop towel underneath it. But even then, it seems like it's in there for too long. It'll eventually start squeaking again. So why am I wearing a sweatshirt? It's August something. We've actually had some kind of goofy weather here lately. And 59. It's southwest Wisconsin, 30 minutes north of Dubuque, Iowa, for those of you that are wondering where I'm at. The nights here lately have been kind of cool, and not in a fun way, you know. I don't mind cooler nights, don't get me wrong. I mean, honestly, I think the crops are looking pretty amazing, and the grain prices are starting to act like they're waking up to that fact, or waking up to the fact that there isn't much grain out there, or the crops are struggling more elsewhere, because around here, I mean, in a very narrow area, the crops look pretty good. You don't have to get very far away from here. Anywhere from 10 miles to 2 miles or 4 miles, wherever it is, at least for a while there. 15, 20 miles. I don't know how far south you gotta go, but it seems like the weather has definitely been picking winners and losers this year. There's people that are pulling cattle off pastures already because their pastures are used up, and the lack of moisture of rain all summer really didn't work to their favor. And we did get a bunch of rain here last week, more than I would have preferred, you know, at least at any one time. What are we at here? If we could have gotten 2 to 3 inches, the landowner said that there was 3 inches down here, which is way too much, because all that standing grass that you see is the stuff that I tried to reclaim. Not all of it has, like, on the upper end there is probably the deepest pond or lowest spot. That did end up collecting a bunch of moisture, which in turn meant I'm not going to be making it. And if it dries up in September, I'll try making it. I mean, I'm trying to go for peak efficiency. Lastly, why am I even talking when I said I was going to do a tedding video? It's not so much about tedding as the fact that I've been down here for going on 4 hours, which really doesn't seem too bad. I mean, I've done much longer days than 4 hours, and I'm probably going to be down here for another 3. So I'm just trying to break up the monotony, I guess. Plus the fact that after 4 hours, I really don't listen to much radio. I really don't. I listen to elevator music and stuff that a lot of people probably don't even know what it is I'm listening to. But get tired of listening to actual songs anymore, because I'm starting to understand what Grandpa used to talk about, how the old songs in the 50s and the 60s, where it seemed like they were just singing with a stub toe, sounded so great to them, but it seems like after a while, I grew up listening to country music, and it's just, after a while, it seems like it's every new song you listen to, it's just a song you've heard before, just rehashed, and it gets repetitive. So I turn music on, but it's probably elevator music to most people, but it's really just to have something going on in the background. Oh, why am I wearing a sweatshirt if I didn't address that? 59 degrees out this morning, and riding around the fields on the four-wheeler at 7 o'clock in the morning. It's kind of cold for wearing my short sleeve shirts. So I didn't take the sweatshirt off because after I took up that load of hay, serviced the disc bind, got it, the blades all changed out or flipped over, greased it and backed it down in the shed at my place because we're done cutting hay for probably 4 weeks. I mean, there's one random strip out of my brother's place that I think is like 2 acres that maybe we'd go and cut. Otherwise, it'll still be there in 4 weeks. But we're done cutting. I definitely like having everything ready to go before I unhook it. Ryan doesn't follow that same mindset, but I sure do. I'd much rather have the deer, the Moco, ready to go. It's greased. All I got to do is hook up to it and leave. And the reason that's so important is because pretty much every time I go to hook onto it, I want to say it's last minute panic, but it definitely seems like you're watching the weather, and I should have been cutting hay yesterday, or I should have been cutting hay 30 minutes ago, and that's pretty much what it was yesterday. Yesterday was Sunday. I had no intentions of cutting this stuff till today. The weather forecast was calling for rain Thursday night, and then I checked it last night when I got done cutting, and it said a chance of rain for Thursday. And then I checked it at noon before I got down here, where, you know, the land of no cell service, and it says no rain until Tuesday of next week again. So if we don't get any rain for another week, I'd be fine with that, or a week from today. Today is Monday, yeah, Monday, whatever. The reason is because every single day going forward here, it's going to be something different. So yesterday was cutting, today is tedding, tomorrow is potentially, I'm going to be working on the baler and getting it hooked up to this and go through it. I got a shield I got to replace in the pickup because it's binding and crumbling and falling apart. And then we're going to see what some of the lighter stuff is going to look like by about noon that I cut last night. So the last stuff we cut is probably going to be the first stuff that we're going to make, just because of how light it is, and it's lighter even though it's windrowed. The sun and the air is able to get through it better than this stuff, which I think this stuff is going to not yield as good as first cut because we all know better, but I still think this stuff across the whole bottom, I think it's going to take a pretty healthy run at 100 bales, 70 to 100 easily. So 150 bales off of everything down here, which would be not quite 2 bales to the acre, is doable. That's going to put me over 500 bales. And then when I go through and make my last cutting of everything in another 6 weeks or so, that's 142 approximately. I need to bring the gator down and with the GPS and actually go around all this and see how many acres I truly have down here now that I have, for the most part, everything that is claimed is stuff that I should be able to make on a regular year. So I mean, it'd be nice to know for when I'm buying fertilizer. But 140 some acres, plus or minus. I think that'd be a pretty risky gamble even right now. Seems how third cut hasn't started to grow back yet. I think that's a pretty risky gamble to think that I'm not going to get at least 100 bales off 140 acres. So last year, granted it was second cut, that actually made over 200 at the same time in September. So it's being fertilized for it. For those of you that wonder why I would fertilize grass so much, even in August like this, it's because grass needs the nitrogen if you want to get any kind of yield results out of it. The reason being is I've done enough unwilling trials down here, or the areas that have just dry fertilizer that I didn't get hit with the liquid fertilizer for second cut. The stuff that, okay, everything's gotten dry fertilizer. Let's just say that right off the bat. So then the stuff that I went through after first cut and didn't get that 20-25 gallon to the acre of 32 was clearly shorter than the stuff that didn't get it. That's purely just running off that dry fertilizer back in April. And I can tell you, if I go through and hit this again and I leave areas that have only gotten that first dry and the first shot of liquid, there's going to be a yield difference, a tonnage difference. And even though nitrogen prices are going up from how everything's looking price-wise, tonnage-wise, I think we're sitting really good. So just the fact that we're looking at getting 3 cuttings is makes a guy really optimistic. I could still lose the bottom. I mean, we could get torrential downpours and it could happen. I mean, the landlords say it hardly ever, rarely happens that when it does rain late in the season, but if we get just a couple rains, which is what they're calling for, get this nitrogen in the ground, get this grass growing, third cut for the win. The kind of irritating thing about it is that last year's plan is happening this year, and last year's plan I'm hoping doesn't happen next year, because last year's plan was to cut this 1st of June, wait 45 days, cut it, and then wait another 45, 60 days, or whatever it was going to be. And we're hitting that pretty close. So I cut this stuff the 2nd week of June, I'm making it the 1st week of August, and then another 45 days approximately, and be making third cut on it. The plan for this year was to let it go and make first cutting sometime in July, just whenever the rain decided to let it dry out. And then fertilize it, and then go back through and make it again in September. So the quality is uber good. The stuff down here I think is going to yield really well. This is second cut, and the second cut is the stuff that I'm moving hay and I'm making room for. I'm going to stack this stuff away. This is the stuff that'll be really, really worth something. Third cut down in the bottom I think will be really nice too. I mean, worth finding a shed to put it in until I'm ready to sell it. Third or second cut, everything on the hill, which is the field, the neighbors, and the other neighbor's place, because I actually got 2 neighbors that I do down here for making the hay, and that stuff's probably going to be made and probably sold as soon as it's done sweating. So this stuff is still pretty heavy. There's a lot of moisture sitting on it yet, but that is to be expected because we cut this, we windrowed it with both machines. The reason we windrowed it, other than the fact it makes it really easy to ted, because there's that much more material that your teeth can hit, The ground was wet. I mean, from all that rain, the material, the grass was really heavy, really thick, so it wasn't allowing the ground to breathe. Well, the sun obviously wasn't going to get down to it. So when you windrow it, it made a 3 to 4 foot swath of bare ground that since yesterday it has dried out. You can actually kick up dust on it. And I'm going through and tedding it back out across those dry areas. So the area that the windrow is currently sitting on and all that material that was on the bottom of the windrow is being spread out. And it's going to allow the sun and the air to get to it. And we're going to see if it'll go by Wednesday. Probably not tomorrow. Back in June, I waited 2 days and then made it. That was too long. It got too dry. The reason for that was we also had 90-degree weather, steady winds and blue sky. We don't have that right now. We have 70s, a high of 80 somewhere in there the next couple days, and cloudy. Not so much the smoke though, but cloudy. And I think it's actually going to let this stuff dry a little bit slower, which, as long as the weather is going to cooperate with me, which you can't really seem to negotiate with Mother Nature, but if the weather is going to allow me to get it dried properly and then get it baled, I mean, as long as it has the time to dry down, let it. So, I don't know. Optimistic, I guess. Cautiously optimistic. I'm making second cut, looking at third cut when I wasn't expecting a third cut, but I also have another application of fertilizer that I wasn't counting on. But I'm selling some of that first cut, or by now I've sold it. A bunch of that first cut hay. By the time you guys get to watch this video, I mean, you guys are far enough ahead of actual events anymore, but that selling that hay will cover the fertilizer and then some. So just for the sake of not making this a super long video, I think I'm gonna call it. I want to get out of here and get up on the rest of it, but everything that's down here is what's going to make me the lion's share of the profit off of this current cutting of hay. So obviously it's getting my attention first, and then if we find a place for it to sleep inside for the next few months, and if I can get this stored in where I'm planning on putting it in, this will probably be the last stuff that I sell, which will be like in that February, March time frame. That is, of course, unless prices keep trending upwards and it encourages me to just dump that much more hay in that short amount of time. I usually haul a few loads a week up, as long as they have the room for it and they're moving it. So, hay market's going to go the other way. We all know that. I mean, you're naive to think that prices are going to stay. I wouldn't say that we're looking at awesome prices right now, but we're looking at good prices right now. And prices could go back to, you know, very realistically, not having your head shoved too far up your butt, thinking that even hay prices can't get back down to cost of production or less than cost of production. That's when things start getting a little bit more interesting, and your pencil's got to start getting a lot sharper, deciding on what you're going to put down as far as fertilizer or for spray or whatever else like that. Even the weeds, I was going to spray for weeds. I don't know if it'll be worth it or not. I'll be watching it, but to be quite honest, even the weeds that were down here, they look like they're starting to break through, but then once you actually start going across it and cutting it, you really don't find very many weeds very densely anywhere. They're all pretty well spread out that are here. So, and the plus side of hitting this stuff with the tedder is as it's spreading it out it's sitting on top of the stubble that we left there, and then the wind is able to get to it and breathe through this hay. So as long as it doesn't rain, right? You guys are watching the rest of the story. Take care, take it easy, keep in touch. Stay safe, look forward to more baling videos, which, let's face it, the videos are going to be pretty much me sitting here talking while I'm baling and informing you of what everything's doing. So if you guys want action videos and drone stuff, go to How Farms Work, because it's kind of redundant me doing action videos when my brother does the exact same thing, and he does it better. So until next time, take care, take it easy, keep in touch. Talk to you guys later.